Hello, hello. Good evening. Good evening. It is Kate and Kenda coming to you live. I just had to. I've you should see my office, Kate. I've got two screens, and when I do this live thing, I kind of lose where we are. So I'm like, oh crap, where'd that screen go? So I think I'm okay now. I think I retrieved it. I want to say hello to everybody out there in the Facebook groups and welcome you. Kate and I are really excited to be here with all of you today. And today we are going to be talking about of all the stages, Kate, it's like it's one of the positive states. It's the stage that all of us kind of look forward to getting to, and that is acceptance. So these stages, just for the people who are new to the group and may not know what we're talking about, they came about from this wonderful lady called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. So there are 5 stages that people generally go through when they have had a loss. And the stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The thing that's really important to know about these stages is that they're fluid and they're not static. People often will rush through grief like it's an obstacle course that they just want to get through. And the goal is to reach the end as fast as they can. And that's the hardest part as a healer when people are, they're like, I hurt so much. When is this pain going to end? When am I going to feel like myself again? And it's really hard to tell them that they're never going to be the way they were, and the pain is going to last for a long time. And it has a purpose to last that long. There's no shortcuts when we go through grief. And if you are somebody that rushes through the process and you don't go through everything that you're supposed to go through, you end up with a lot of unresolved grief, and that can cause a lot of anguish for you when you suffer another loss because it never goes away. And that's really important too for people who've had multiple losses. I know there's a gal who's joining us Saturday, Kate, and she's had multiple losses, and so it's really important for her to be grieving each one of her losses
Mhm.
so
Right.
that she doesn't pay particular attention to one and forget about the other one because it'll come back to haunt her.
Mhm.
So everyone wants grief to go away, but there's no fast track. There's nothing that Kate and I can do for you to to get through it. There's resources we can give you. There's tools we can give you that'll help you understand it better. And that's what you need to do. Each and every one of us has to understand grief. So
Mhm.
acceptance, it tends to be the part of the equation where our emotions start to stabilize. At this point, we kind of enter into a new reality. Um, when you hit acceptance, it doesn't mean that you feel good or right about the loss. That's really important to know. But most people at this point, they they know that everything that has happened and nothing is going to change. We get to the point that we accept that we now have a new reality, and this new reality simply can't be changed. We're we're often trying to figure out a new life, a life without the pet by our side. Acceptance certainly doesn't mean that we forget. We never forget. For most people, we're embracing the here and now, the good aspects and the bad aspects of the here and now. And when people reach this point, it's often said that they become content. And I can remember when I reached that point in kind of each of my losses. I don't remember the exact date. I just remember that life just seemed to get a little bit easier, and that was very welcoming. So we're all trying to figure out this new normal right now, and it's even more difficult because of the pandemic that's going on. when you hit acceptance, it means that you have more good days than bad days. And we start to find ourselves reaching out to people who we used to have relationships with. We're looking to rekindle those friendships and those relationships. Our life is new, and it takes on um, a new way of being as we're solo now. So that is kind of my interpretation of what acceptance is, Kate. I would love to hear what your view on it all is.
Well, my I have a few different interpretations. I've got Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's interpretation right here. I use a lot of resources if you haven't noticed. And I remember when I first read this, I was going through the grief myself and I didn't appreciate it then. And there's going to be maybe
Oh,
somebody here that doesn't appreciate it, and you'll see why. I
interesting.
do appreciate it now. But she says, the reality is that you will grieve forever. Even though you have acceptance, you still are going to miss your pet. You will not get over the loss of a loved one. You will learn to live with it. You will heal and you will rebuild yourself around the loss that you have suffered. You will be whole again, but you will never be the same, nor should you want to be the same. And when I read that the first time, I'm like, no, wait, I do want to be the same. I don't want to be in a state of grief. But the
Yeah.
fact is, when we really truly have healed, we wouldn't go back to who we were before this all happened. And, you know, I look at all the books, look at the books here. Would I want to go back to a time before there were any of these books?
I know.
Look what Jack gave to me. But
That's really interesting that that the emotions that you felt regarding that statement, and even when you read it, I
yeah,
was like, I can feel a little of a little bit about that emotion myself.
yeah, people don't want to hear that they'll never be the same, and that they don't want to hear that they wouldn't want to be the same. Who are you to tell me I wouldn't want to be the same? But it's true, and we do end up getting to that place, and I think that place is actually beyond acceptance. The place where you say, I've grown enough that I wouldn't go back to who I was. That's beyond the state of acceptance.
Yes. And when you're at that point, you know you're there, right? You
Oh, you
know
know,
you're there. And
like
and
you
I can,
reported.
pardon me?
Just like you reported, there's just a feeling that you're solid, you're stable, you're not over the tears, you're not over the
Uh-uh.
grief, but you're over the worst of it.
You still get triggered. There's still things that will happen that will trigger you, but there are more good days than bad days, and
Yeah,
you're looking for more goodness than badness. And that's not a word, but
yeah,
but
no,
you know what I mean. You're looking for the good in the people around you and the things that are going on, and you actually I remember for myself anyways, Kate, that I was strong enough that I could start helping people again. That was kind of my trigger that things were moving in the right direction for me. Before that, I mean, when you're going through loss, I was useless. Like there was, if anybody said to me, Kenda, I need some help, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm up
yeah.
here. There's nothing left for me to give you.
Well, aside from the fatigue, we're also when we're going through grief, we feel like we've been victimized, and we don't. When we're victims, we're not in a powerful place. We don't feel our power. And I think when we get to the acceptance phase, we finally face the fact that we don't have to be a victim anymore, and we step into our power a little bit more.
That's really good. That's really good, Kate. I like the way you said that. There was this guy that we were pretty close. We were friends, really good friends. I thought. See where that relationship went, but anyways, I would Stella used to be at the office every day with me, and this guy worked there too. And he comes in on the weekend, and I'm there, and Stella's not there. And he doesn't. I mean, I'm sure he's one of my Facebook friends, so I'm sure he read, what happened,
Mhm.
but there was no condolence. There was no, can I give you a hug? There was nothing. And I was so angry for so long, Kate. It took me a really long time to get to that point where I wasn't angry with him anymore. I just
Mhm.
thought, how can you be so ignorant? I mean, you love this dog too, and at that point, I was mad. But then when I after I dealt with everything, I kind of looked at him and felt sorry for him, that he was so socially, what's the word, like,
It's uncomfortable, that's for sure.
yeah, that he wasn't able to say I'm sorry or I miss her or anything like that. And you know that's, I think that's where a lot of friendships are probably often lost, right?
Yeah. Well,
Because
they are, a lot of them are lost at the anger stage. I think we talked about that during the
yeah.
anger stage, but this stage of acceptance, when our power is coming back to us, we can take a step back and look at those things just like you're looking at him now, and
Hmm.
say, and weigh your priorities and weigh, there's a lot of people that had issues with their vets, and there's a lot of people that had issues
Oh,
with other people with what they didn't say or what they did say,
yes.
and they want to break those relationships because they're so volatile during the grieving process. But at the stage of acceptance is when you don't burn those bridges early on. You don't need that on top of everything else. That's more losses you're creating for
Yep.
yourself.
Without
So
even realizing it, right?
that's right. So
Yeah.
when you get to the acceptance phase, it's a really good time to take stock in everything and say, maybe, the vet was human too, and maybe I need to forgive him, because if you don't forgive him, it just bothers you. It doesn't bother him.
That
And or her.
100. Yeah, 100%, Kate.
Yeah. And
100%.
your friends, there's been people that don't want to speak to their friends again after they said something that wasn't caring or something. But now is a good time at the acceptance point to say, okay, how do I really feel about this person? Is my life better with this person in it?
Mm.
Or do I need to let this person go? You can make a better decision when you're not in that emotionally volatile place.
Amen. Amen. And it's interesting. David Kessler wrote a book, the sixth stage of grief, and it's called like the lesson that you learned
Mhm.
from the loss of your loved one, whether
Mhm.
whether it be a pet, whether it be a person. And that's a really hard thing to explain to people. What do you mean a lesson? Like, how can I possibly learn something from something that hurts so much? But you really do, don't you, Kate? Like, you learn something from such an impactful loss.
Yeah, and what is the lesson? It's always love. Love is always the lesson. Always.
Yeah. And that's, like you said, I started to look at this particular gentleman with a different set of eyes. Instead of me being angry with him, I felt sorry for him. I
Mhm.
just thought, my gosh, like I would hate to be that person that's uncomfortable going up to another individual that their heart is broken and they're bleeding, and just putting your arms around them and just saying, I'm so sorry. I
Right.
know you love that animal. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry.
if they can't do it for you, you can do it for them.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
And
good.
I find myself having to be careful because, when people are freshly grieving, they're angry, right? And they're talking about, well, you wouldn't believe what this person said or what that person said. And I always find myself, and I don't know if it's because I'm a glass half full type girl and I've always been that way, saying, hey, you know what? Like, give them a little bit of a break, and don't be upset with them, because not everybody can handle knowing what to say at really awkward times. And you may be dissolving a friendship based on your emotional state and then have regrets about it later.
It's important though to remind them that it's okay to feel the way they feel, and that you understand how they could feel that way, because otherwise they're going to adhere some of the anger to you. If
Oh, oh,
Yeah, if
yeah.
you don't if they think you don't understand either. So
Oh,
it's important to validate the fact that they have a right to feel that way, and that maybe you'd feel that way too, but fill in the
good
blank.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very, very good point. It's um it's you become gentler at this point, wouldn't you say? Like, you
Yeah.
just,
Calmer. calmer.
calmer. Yeah,
That's
that's
when people complain they can't see the signs, they can't dream the dreams. Well, sometimes many people can't experience those things until they get to a more accepting place because their emotions are all in the way or their desperation is in the way. And when you're in acceptance, you're in a state of calm, and you can tell them all about how important it is to quiet their minds. But
yes.
when the mind is quiet, everything else can come through.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the hardest part. Like when Stelly and I go walking, I'm a sign magnet, Kate. Like, and I think you are too, because I've seen your
What?
pictures. A
You're a what?
sign magnet.
Oh, a
Like
sign magnet.
I
Yes.
have feathers presenting themselves to me,
Yeah.
rainbows, and I've got this cardinal that, and he's just, and it's a male. And every time something traumatic happens in my life, I'll look outside and that little bird will be right there in my eyesight. And that
Yeah.
cannot be a coincidence.
No, well, he knows that he's there, so he can appear
Oh,
as often as he wants to, knowing that you know.
yeah, and it's amazing. And it always gives me a sense of, that somebody's listening to me, somebody's hearing me, and
Yeah,
feeling what I'm feeling, and telling me that things are going to be, it's like a virtual hug, you
sure
know
it is.
yeah, it's like a virtual hug.
Sure.
um
Everybody you ever knew and loved that aren't even here anymore know what's going on. They're
absolutely.
never alone. They're all around us.
And it's painful for people who are freshly grieving, and they hear of like you'll get these people that'll post these beautiful rainbows, and then there's others that they can't connect with any of that, and that's because they're just so locked in their grief, would you say?
Yeah, I would say they're not in a receiving mode. They're as Jack would say, it's like trying to climb up a waterfall to get to you. It's just there's too
Oh,
much.
I
If
like
you
that.
look at energy, there's too much coming out of the person that's got anger or resentment or desperation. There's an energy that comes out and they can't receive because the energy is pushing back
Right.
on what they would normally be able to receive. So it's like
Yeah.
swimming upstream.
Yeah, I like that. I like that metaphor. I like that metaphor. And we're going to be talking a little bit about things that people can do when they're going through the grieving process to kind of bring those signs into their awareness. And it's a learned behavior. It's not something that comes naturally to absolutely every single person. I don't know if anybody taught it to me, Kate. I think I'm very spiritual. I'm a Christian. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but I've always, things just happen. I don't think I needed to learn that, but I don't think everybody is that way though, right?
I think if they're running low on faith, or, faith is having belief in things that you can't see. So if you have faith, if you have that belief, you're going to be able to receive things more than if you're running low on it.
Yes.
And for a while after, when you're first grieving, you run low on faith because you're questioning, why did God make this happen? Why did he take him away from me? If you believe in God, or
Higher
yeah,
power. Yeah,
it's all
whatever.
part of the being able to see the vision, remove the shadow so you can see.
And that's not so easy to do, is it?
No, it's not
No, no, it's not so
the
easy
hardest
to do.
thing.
It is the hardest thing, but there is such reassurance when you're able to do that there's just more than what meets the eye, and that's what kind of gives you that warm fuzzy feeling, and lets you know that everything is okay you
Right.
know um do you have a reading for us this evening?
Oh, do you want me to read to you
I would,
tonight?
yes, I would love that.
Okay, I have a chapter on acceptance. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but I've highlighted certain parts of it to
Sure.
share tonight.
Which book is this in, Kate?
Only gone,
Okay,
only gone from your sight.
I'm not going to
Chapter
point to it because I
24.
get all messed up when I do that.
Yeah.
It's above
Well,
my head.
most of 3/4 of the book is back here, so that's how long it takes to get from the beginning of grief to acceptance.
Well, that shows you right there, right? Doesn't it?
Yep, you got to get through it, and the book will help you if you want help by way of reading.
I like that.
At the beginning of the chapter, I put in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's beautiful.
Acceptance can be misunderstood. It doesn't mean your life is perfect or that you think it is. You can still be missing me and crying heavy tears, but you aren't fighting it anymore. You have surrendered. You have admitted that what has happened and it cannot be changed. You've accepted the fact that your life will go on with me or without me. Only those who avoid love in their lives can avoid the pain of grief. Please don't let yourself be one of them. Now remember, this is Jack. Jack is speaking. It's Jack's voice.
It's Jack's voice.
Those who avoid love probably learn to avoid it because of a previous experience with the pain of loss. It is a vicious cycle, and it can become an obstacle to climb over if you are to live a life that is worth living. Love is what makes it worth living. It makes the world go round. It makes the ride worthwhile. I am the one who brings hope into your heart. I am the one who will bring you back to believing in love again, inspiring you to be willing to take the risk to love again. The love is always stronger than the pain. The love you give and get is what gives you the strength to move not only through the pain of loss, but through every challenging situation for the rest of your life if you learn what I came here to teach you. If you learn what grief came to teach you, you will find looking back that you never lost anything at all, that I am still with you, that your faith will see you through everything that can happen, and that in the end, everything will be okay. Acceptance is the stage where you will move from resisting to adapting. Of course, you cannot go back to the way things were. You may never appreciate what happened, but you will come to accept it. One piece of life at a time, you will learn to show up differently. You never do fully recover you in quotes. You will never have another relationship exactly like the one we had. You will become more for the loss of me, and you will move forward into a brand new you, the you that I helped you to become. All you can do now is begin to create the beautiful new you that has been born from your love and from your loss. Life is short, but life is long, and sooner or later, whether you move or whether you don't, grief needs to be shaken to make room for new opportunities to help you to get to know the new you. After all, while you live upon the earth, you must make the most of it. You must live your life as best you can, and living in endless grief is not living at all.
Yeah.
When you have healed, you'll be more confident and you will find yourself willing to take some risks again. I can feel you saying now, no, 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 I don't want to take any more risks. Well, you aren't quite ready yet, but when the moment comes, I want you to remember the risks you have taken that have made your life better. I want you to remember the risk that you took that very first day when you brought me into your home and into your heart.
Okay, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And it's so, yeah, it resonates with me because you're in so much pain. You can't ever imagine loving again and wanting to voluntarily put
Mhm.
yourself through all of that again. But then there gets to be a point, and as I said, I don't remember when my point was. It took me 3 years to get another dog, but I missed so much the little footy prints, and it just, and it was so empty, and I knew the only thing that was going to fill me was going to be getting another dog. And then, yeah, I remember picking her up and looking at the seat, and she's looking up at me and I'm looking down at her. And I said to her, I said, Stella, you're going to have some big paws to fill, girl, because Stella was, she was such an incredible dog.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I lost my dog at when she was 2 years old. Tragically, she was hit by a tractor trailer. So I didn't have a full life with her, and man, did I go through the anger stage for a long time, a long, long time. But it was that ride home with Stelly, and just everything just changed. Everything just changed. Would I have felt that way earlier? I don't know, Kate. I don't know if I would have or not. I think when I got Stelly, I was ready.
I think what a lot of people don't understand is that when they think they're ready for something, they think that their thoughts are their own thoughts, but sometimes we're being directed by our guides, by sometimes God and Jesus or whoever you believe in. And sometimes being directed by our angels and our guides and our pets who are on the other side. And they're the ones that are pushing us along, and they're the ones that help us to see what's right for us.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we feel less alone when we can believe that, when we know that.
And sometimes we don't even know what's right for us, right? we I
No,
mean, you're just, you don't know. So it's like you just, I'm a big gut person. I'm a big trusting the gut. And if it feels right, then you do it. If you have any kind of precautionary warning sign, and you're holding back, then there's a reason that it's not the right time for you, and you need to give it some more time. Uh,
right.
there's some people on the group where they've gotten a pet, within a week, and that's perfectly fine
Yep,
for them. That it was their time to do that.
yep,
It doesn't mean that they have any less grief than anyone else. So it's so important that people don't compare.
right. We
Um,
we have a friend that I forget how many dogs and cats and horses and pigs and what he had all his life. He had hundreds of animals around him all the time, but every time one of his pets died, he um he went right out, quote, to honor the memory of that pet. He went right out and got another one, and he did that before he even had time to think. And I usually discourage making a decision that fast, but that worked for him. So
it
what
worked
works
for
for
him.
one could work for another or not.
Right.
You have to do what's right for you.
You had um, maybe could you give a little rundown on who Jack is? Because I know we've got some new people in the group who may not be aware of who this Jack is.
Oh, well, Jack, in 2005, I went and met an 8-week-old puppy at a puppy mill. And a couple weeks later, I called to see if he was still there. Unfortunately, he still was. I can't believe I walked away from him for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And but something was pushing me to follow up with that. And I brought Jack home, and like every other puppy, he was a piece of work for a couple of years with house training,
Yep.
and but he was basically a really good puppy. For not all puppies are good
No.
puppies, but he was really pretty good. But anyway, he and um I had Grady at the time too. She was my Sheltie. I got Jack as the backup plan because I didn't know how to live without Grady. She was going to be 16, or she was 14 at the time. But anyway, so Jack and I worked partners in the hospice vehicle. We'd go out and see people for hospice, and we just were joined at the hip. We traveled a lot, and we were always together. And Grady passed, and I remember leaving the vets that day. I had to have her put to sleep or lifted up, as Jack says. And I had left Jack at home that day, but I just said, I've got a little boy to go take care of. So it's really nice to have one at home that's waiting for you when you have to go through that process. And that's kind of why I got Jack. So I could make it work that way. But anyway, when he was just under 9 years old, he there was just a weekend we went out and he couldn't seem to poop, and he wasn't pooping all weekend. And I thought, what's going on here? I gave him pumpkin and yogurt and all the things you're supposed to do. And Sunday night came, and I called the vet to make an appointment for Monday, and I took him in, and he had surgery for a rectal mass on Tuesday. And I brought him home, and I was writing another book at the time. I was just going to sit with him and write my book. I took the week off from work, and I wasn't worried at all. And he just went downhill and downhill and downhill. And on Friday at 3 a.m., or Saturday morning at 3 a.m. He passed on our kitchen floor. And I'm a hospice worker. I do counseling and I help people work through grief. And I didn't do very well with my own grief. And my dad died the next day unexpectedly. So I got double whammied. But I really didn't process. I was stuck in denial. I was just stuck for a long,
So
long
much.
time.
Yeah.
And then around the 6 month mark, I hadn't written anything since the week I took Jack in. And I sat down and wrote 12 pages in my journal by my bedside one night. And the next morning I looked at it and I'm like, wow, what am I going to do with all this? It was Jack speaking to me through my own handwriting.
Love it.
And that's what book one is. That's what started book one.
Actions.
But yeah, it's been a journey. And sometimes I look at Jack's picture and I say, gosh, who did you know we were going to be doing this? Did you know ahead of time? Was it our destiny?
Exactly.
And
Right. That's
sometimes I look at him and I say, who'd believe we would have done this together?
yeah. Yeah. He picked you, right, Kate?
He picked me.
He picked you.
Well, his brother picked me, and then I was confused because I thought I was supposed to take his brother home. And then the
Oh,
lady at the puppy mill picked his brother out of my lap. And I was watching Jack the whole time while his brother was in my lap. And the lady picked him up, and later she came over. She said, he just wants a warm lap. So then I went over to Jack, who wasn't Jack at the time. He was just a scraggly, he had like a possum tail. He was the little ugly duckling in the
yeah.
bunch. And he ended up being a beautiful
I
dog.
know. Look at what he turned into,
Yeah,
right? It's absolutely gorgeous.
thank
So,
you.
so all of the books that you write for people who are like, well, what should I do at this point? You know, I love the fact that one of the free resources that you give people is it's not putting me down, it's lifting me up.
Yeah,
Great place to start your grief journey, just to understand what's happening in a world where you can't understand anything.
yeah.
You're just so discombobulated at that point. And I mean, I know myself, I didn't sleep. Like, so if I'd had your books back when I lost Stella, I think I would have been, I think I would have moved through the grief a lot better, Kate,
I'm
because
sure you would have.
I
I'm
would
sure
have been
you
able to
would have.
understand it. There's just, I just, and even as when I did get them, and that was, when I had Stelly and I was reading back, it connected a lot of the dots for me. Just, it
Yeah,
was like I had unfinished business, and it was like, okay, I had a lot of aha moments where things started to make sense where they
good,
didn't make sense before.
good.
And I think that's the beauty of your writing is it gets down into the places that we don't necessarily want to go or that we don't understand.
Yeah. Well,
And you
what I
do.
my job at hospice is to really bring things out into the open about what people are thinking, what people are feeling, but they're afraid to talk to each other. They don't want to upset each other, and bringing those feelings out is the power of what I do for hospice because everybody needs to
Oh,
be out in the open to have it be healthy.
yeah.
And that's kind of what I do with Jack's books. I just bring out the feelings that everybody feels, but they don't necessarily know what to do with.
It's that elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk
Yeah,
about.
it's
But
true.
even more so, they don't want to talk about it, but they don't understand it themselves.
Hmm.
So when that there's a danger in seeking counseling from friends and family members who don't understand what you're going through. And I've had this kind of discussion with with a few of the members, and it's like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If you go to somebody and you're telling them, how you're feeling and what's going on in your mind, and they're not able to help you,
Hmm.
don't keep going back thinking that the
Hmm.
next day maybe they're going to become more compassionate to your needs.
No,
It's not because they don't love you or they don't care about you. They just don't have that ability to connect with you on
no,
that level.
they don't get it. Either they don't get it or they're so uncomfortable seeing you uncomfortable, they don't know how to help. Or a lot of
Yeah.
people don't have a lot of people skills.
Yeah.
So. And a very typical scenario is maybe a husband or a wife. There are wives that don't understand too, or they understand for a while that, oh, I'm sorry, honey, I know you're hurting. But after a while, it's like, okay, it's been long enough now, hasn't it?
Get over it.
You know, it's been a week or it's been a month or it's been
Yeah.
3 months.
Hmm.
You know, some people need 3 years.
Oh my gosh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's the beauty of the group, right? I'm always telling people, like, don't go chasing after the people that don't necessarily, they can't give you what you need.
Yeah.
And I find with friends that you often, there's different types of friends. There's friends that you call up to go to the movies with, or to go for a walk, or to go for dinner. And
Mhm.
then there's friends that you could call up and have long conversations with,
Yeah.
and they get your heart.
Yep.
The friend that you go to the movies with, or you go to dinner with, they they're they're people that like to go out, they like to do things. They don't necessarily want to get into those deep, dark
No, they don't.
conversations,
They
right?
keep it shallow. They try to keep it shallow, and they still try to do it when they know you're hurting. They work desperately to keep it shallow, and
Yeah,
that's what's so upsetting sometimes. But they
right,
can't do it any other way. They don't
right.
know another way.
So if I get angry at that person because they don't get me, I've I've put a barrier up in a relationship that shouldn't have had a barrier.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
the irony is that they don't get you, but you don't get them
Yeah,
either.
but
It goes
they
both
didn't.
ways.
Right. But they didn't change though, Kate, did they? That's the way they've always been. Um, it's funny in David's book, he talks about his accountant said to him, David Kessler's son died by way of suicide, and he has a very good friend who was an accountant, and he said, she said to David, you spent way too much money on your son's funeral. And he was like, oh my God, what a thing to say. But when he got to the point where he could kind of evaluate things, he realized that she's an accountant. That's her job. She crunches numbers for a living, right? So what she said, even though it cut him and even though it hurt him, wasn't meant to do that at all. It's just that's what she knows, right?
That's right.
So that's not a person for you to turn to get that compassion that you need, because
Uh,
they're not able to do that for you.
that's when you get to the acceptance point and you get the emotions out of the way and you get your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
That's when you take a look at these people, and that's when you can see that they weren't capable of it for whatever reason. They use the other side of their brain, or they just they have their own way of looking at it, and everybody's doing the best they can.
They're practical. They're practical grievers, and but
Practical.
they're not the ones that are going to get you where you need to be. And that's the importance of finding the groups.
Right.
And like I tell people, like they talk to me, and I know your groups talk to you, and it's like, what, you need to put this out into the group, so that number one, it gets validated, and number two, you see that you're not alone in your thoughts, that there's
Yeah.
other people that are going through probably the exact same thing you're going through, and
Right.
that somehow just makes everything okay.
Yeah, and it's really important when you're in the group, to whoever's group you're in, to post a picture of your pet, and or maybe a picture of you and your pet, and tell a brief story in the post. And we have people in Heart to Heart that do that, and they get 300, 400 comments from people. And sometimes it's just, I'm so sorry for your loss, or your cat was so beautiful, or I don't
Yeah.
know how people lose their horse, and I'm so glad you're in our group so we can help you through this. And it's just, I remember when Jack passed, I had a Facebook page. I still have a Facebook page that has changed over time, but
Right.
I was going to take the page down, and I put a note on that Jack didn't survive his surgery, and that was the first time I saw like 80,000 people saw the post, and he was just my family dog at the time, but I saw the power of Facebook through that, and I got so much validation from my friends, and they all said, don't take his page down, keep it going. So little did I know I would need it now.
Yeah, no
but
kidding, no
but it
kidding.
was I remember going back through the all the comments people made. I remember I read it the first time, and then I wasn't all there when I read it the first time. And then I went back and read it a second time. And then I went back again and I just needed to hear those words. And they're there preserved forever. I can go back anytime and see all the compassion that was being given to
And
me.
you're so glad that you didn't get rid of the page, aren't you, Kate?
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've got, oh, Teresa is on here. She's saying, I'm now watching you. Hello,
Hi,
Teresa.
Teresa.
And Darlene Bell is saying this is very helpful.
Hi, Darlene.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that interesting? The validation part of it is so important. And there's people that come in and I find that they're the ones that they sit at the back of the church. They show up every Sunday, they're there, but they don't necessarily want to have too much attention put on them, so they're sitting in the back pews.
Right
And then
there.
they're front pew people, they're there and they want to be noticed. And I hope at some point when people feel comfortable enough that those back pew people will start to move up a little bit closer
Yeah,
to the front of the church and tell us their story, because it's so important.
that's right.
It's so important. Um,
Baby
if
steps.
Baby steps, absolutely. Teresa or Darlene, if you guys have any questions, feel free, or anybody else. There's 5 people watching us. Anybody else that has any questions, please feel free to comment below, and I'll be checking here. Kate, let's talk a little bit about our class that we have coming up this Saturday. Um, a lot of people asked for a little bit of extra support. They wanted more than what the groups were doing for them. So Kate and I did some talking, and together we came up with an 8-week program, and we're presenting it. We were going to do it on Tuesday, but then what happened is we have some UK people that are joining us, and Tuesday night just, I mean, that's 1 o'clock in the morning for them. So we decided, oh, let's move it to Saturday so that we can get some more of these people from England in. So that's kind of why there was a change halfway through it, if anybody's wondering. And if you go to sign up, you're going to see on the Facebook page or on the website that it still says the start date is supposed to be today. My IT guy, Iowa was devastated by the storms that we had a few weeks back, and our internet is still kind of hit and miss. And that may, remember last week I had trouble, Kate, and
Yep.
we had to switch over to be live.
Yes.
That could have
Right.
been, yeah, I was thinking about that afterwards. That could be what happened.
Could be.
Um, so with this class that we're doing on Saturday, the price is $80, which is an unbelievable price. You're going to get Kate and I in the group. Our goal is to help you guys understand your grief better. We're going to have reading components in the group. We're going to have writing components in the program. And I'm going to be at the end of every week, I'm going to be teaching a mind modality, which is a tool or a resource that people can tap into to help them to help put themselves into a more resourceful state. So, when you're at work and the boss needs you to do something for him and you're having a particularly tough moment, it's being able to pull yourself together so that you can be the person that you need to be when you're at work or when you're trying to function, and grief just can't be playing a role in that time of your life. So
Mhm.
I'm going to be teaching some really cool things, which I call mind modalities. And Kate, of course, is going to be working with us. And the resources we're going to be using are Jack's books. So that's gonna have a big play. And we're going to have some exercises for the people to do too that will help them just understand their feelings a
It'll
little
be
bit.
fun. Some of them will be fun.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good. Kate and I, both of us, we're both kind of doing things on our own, so we haven't talked and shared with each other to know what the other one's doing. So it'll be interesting for both of us.
Yeah, this week is our week to integrate everything.
That's right. I remember Kate, 25, 26 years ago, I lost my sister and brother-in-law in a 18-wheeler accident. They were driving and they got hit head on by an 18-wheeler, and they were both killed. And Kate, I couldn't attend enough grief groups. I was so lost.
Yeah.
It was evident very, very quickly in my grieving process that people around me just didn't understand. A lot of them, well, it was a sister, and I was like, she wasn't just a sister, she was my best friend, and
Yeah.
my brother-in-law I adored to pieces too. So I found myself attending so many grief groups, and I can honestly say that they helped me, each and every one of them. One in particular helped me a lot. Another one taught me. I think I told that story of where I went to one that was offered at the hospital, and my grief was made feel very secondary by the facilitator because it wasn't a child, it wasn't a spouse of many, many years, it was just a sister.
Just, just a
Just
sister, just a
just
dog, just a
just
pet,
a
just a
dog.
sister.
Oh yeah, exactly. And
Wow.
I think that's what set my internal kind of I need to do something about this so many years ago, which brings me to now because I was just horrified. I was just horrified. So in this group, it's for any loss. It's not just dogs or cats or horses. It could be a gerbil. It could be a lizard. It
Yeah.
could be a guinea pig. Any loss at all. Anything where your heart is broken. You are more than welcome to join.
And it always overflows into human loss. I mean, loss is loss, and it's
Love is love,
love is love.
and
Yeah,
love is
that's
love.
right.
And I mean, none of us live forever, right? And as it's funny. Something that's really weird, and I find myself doing it now every morning when mom and dad would get the newspaper, they'd automatically turn to the obituaries.
Yeah.
And I used to think that was so morbid. I'm like, why are you doing that? And now at my age, I find myself doing the same thing.
No.
I'm not from here, I'm from Canada. So I'll like Google obituaries
Oh
in the
my.
Ottawa Citizen just to see who's no longer here anymore. And so
Wow.
the older you get, the more you realize that your
The
rotations
days are
around the
numbered.
sun, yeah, they're getting less and less. So it's really important to understand grief. And is comfortable a good word, Kate? Like I'm comfortable with death, with grief. It doesn't haunt me. Is comfortable a good word?
That's a good word.
Yeah,
You're in a comfort zone with it.
yeah,
You're accepting of it.
yeah. And
You're not
I think
afraid of it.
no, no, not at all, not at all. And I see the importance of people learning that, getting to that point.
Mm.
So we've still got some seats. They haven't all been bought up yet. We're keeping it to 12. So we want the class size to be small, so that we can, get a chance to know the people really,
Yeah,
really well.
there's an interactive component too, isn't there? Just
Yes,
like a
absolutely.
classroom.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be sad, but it's also going to be fun, like Kate said. And I really look forward to seeing the how people change after those 8 weeks. And then we're talking about Kate and I were talking earlier about perhaps opening up another Facebook group and having these people in that group and then positioning ourselves in that group a little bit more. And that group will only be for people who have gone through our online virtual class, which is really cool because you can be absolutely anywhere in the world doing this. I mean, don't you find with this pandemic that, I mean, a lot of things are crappy, but there's also a new way of doing life right now, isn't there?
We're going to have graduates. We're going to have graduates from our program. We're going to have the grad school.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be. Oh, if I can add something, I was speaking with one of our members, and she has a program where they set you up with a counselor, a grief counselor. So she was, thought she was doing okay, and she was doing this virtually, and she's a gal who is plagued with guilt. And I'm going to let her tell her story. I think it's up to her to do that. But this grief counselor, he said something to her, and oh my goodness, did it make me upset and angry? And he blamed her, and I immediately jumped on this conversation. I just went, my goodness, this is a person, this is a professional that should not be in the grief. Um, what do you call it? The grief.
And there,
He shouldn't be counseling people with grief,
no,
because
no,
what he said to her was so horrible.
it's
So,
absolutely the last thing you should say to
oh,
someone.
and it kind of common sense, right, Kate? Like, even
Yeah,
if you didn't have any counseling background,
yeah,
you would
no,
never say something as
not
horrible as this to
acceptable.
somebody. Absolutely. And so this gal is joining us, and I think she's okay. I've been doing some work with her, but I really look forward to her joining us, and I know she's going to blossom, Kate. I know she's going to
Yeah, I
blossom, and
believe she will.
I'm excited.
Yeah, the
I'm
other thing is with animal communicators, some of them are very good, and some of them, I had a someone I was counseling for quite a while, and she ended up going to an animal communicator that someone had referred her to, and the she had a like a big wolf hybrid dog that she had loved, but she left the gate open and it got out, and I don't know if it got run over. I can't remember what happened to it, but the animal communicator said that her dog was angry with her for leaving the gate open.
Oh,
And then the other thing
wow.
she said was when she was asked how she could connect with her dog, the woman said, "Well, you can't connect with him because he doesn't speak English."
Are you
Literally, literally,
serious?
she was told that, and that makes no sense. It makes no sense. Dogs are telepathic, no matter whether they're angels or on earth. They can transmit their thoughts and read your thoughts. They don't need
Oh,
English.
but
They,
that just makes me so sad that so this person reached out to you, so you were able to kind of put her in a better state
yeah,
of
it
mind.
was a long haul for her, and I think that the going to the wrong communicator was set her back. It set her back a lot of steps back.
And that people have to be really careful, because you're so vulnerable and desperate, right? I was desperate to have. I spent so long with all of my losses with the why. Why? Why? Somebody needed to explain to me why. I
Yeah.
went to police officers. I went to crime reconstructive. Like, somebody needed to explain why. I've never ever ever gotten an answer to my
No,
why, Kate.
no, you did.
Never.
I would have
Never.
been asking why too. It was just too
Yeah.
young, too sudden, too young.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But I have great confidence that someday, when it's my time to leave this earth, that all of my whys will be answered.
They
And
will
that
be answered.
gives, yeah, that gives me the power to kind of be okay with
Yeah.
not knowing right now.
Well, and Jack would tell you there might be maybe there was a contract that Stella had to fulfill and she had to be someplace else and yet she was with you and she had to get somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you just never know. There's a whole universe working behind the scenes.
I know. And that's, instead of being scared, I find it very, like, curious. I'm curious, not that I want that day to come anytime soon. but
No,
but
neither do I.
I'm certainly not one of those people that are just like, no, 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 not now, not ever. It's like, no, I've got so many people on the other side, and animals that
Mhm.
I look forward to finding out all the answers to my whys, because man, do I have a lot of them. As
Yeah,
I'm sure everybody does, right? We
you'll have
all,
it very quickly once you get make that travel,
once,
that
yeah,
journey.
once it's our time, right? Once our
Yep,
contract expires,
that's
and
right.
we can move on to
That's
whatever
right.
else is out there. Well, Kate, we are coming to an end. Um, if anybody has any questions for us, please leave them in the comment section, and we'll check in and get back to them. But as I said, Kate and I are going to be teaching our first class. We're really excited about it. We've got quite a few people signed up already, but there's still a few seats left for others. We're going to be using the Zoom platform. don't be nervous if you don't understand Zoom. I can help you with it. It's super, super easy. And it's going to be, and if you're not comfortable with being seen on camera, there's a really cool little feature where you can turn your camera off.
Yeah.
So we're hoping, because we're going to be only 12 or 14 counting you and I, that people will, if they're not comfortable at the beginning, will eventually get comfortable, so that they can we can see their faces and connect with them on that level.
Yeah, and can I make a comment about the acceptance phase? What comes out of the acceptance phase is a whole lot of growth. You're like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon, and the more you learn new things, like I remember when a long time ago in our group, I was gifting Jack's books away and on Kindle for free, and people didn't know how to do the Kindle or how to download it or how to read it on a Kindle, and I would teach them how to do it, and that's one thing that they learned. And Zoom is one thing that you can learn. I learned Zoom from Kenda, and you can too.
It's
And
not that bad, is it, Kate?
no, it's just hard to remember to look at this camera here instead of.
Yeah, yeah. It takes a while because you want to connect with the person. So
I
you
know I want to look in your eyes, but
yeah,
I'm
and
not looking in your eyes to you unless I'm looking at the
at
camera.
the camera, and that's just
So,
so
yeah,
weird.
it's
Um,
weird. I remember learning how to scuba dive, or not scuba dive, snorkel. And
okay,
the breathing is all backwards, and this is all backwards too, but
yeah.
once you got it,
Once you
it's
get onto it, yeah,
fun.
it's
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 fun.
fine, isn't it? It's
So
fine.
come join us.
Yes, please do. Please do. We're going to sign off for now, and thank everybody for tuning in Tuesdays with Kate and Kenda. And we will talk to you later, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.